Welcome to Energy Quest. We have here the World Delivery Team Lead. That's Mr. Derrick Klutsey from Tullow Oil. He's right there. He does it all. He leads the team that handles everything drilling. So all the questions you have will be answered today. So before we take off, I would remind you to subscribe to the channel and put down there all the comments that you have, and then you can get answers to. Mr. Klutsey, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Okay. We look forward to this forever because lots of our viewers have always put out these same questions, because typically when people hear of the oil sector, one of the mysteries that they'll always see is how we can go in the water and drill into the sea and be able to bring something from deep down there. So it takes a lot. When you're not in this business, it's something it's hard to imagine, come to reality. But for a regular Ghanaian gentleman like you, I'm curious, how did you end up in that sector?
Okay. So it's going to be interesting to know that when I finished SS, I was torn between a couple of courses to do in uni. So at that point in time, I really did not want to do any of the traditional courses like electricals and mechanical and all the other things. So I wanted something different. But thank God, my mom, who worked at the bank, was a bit interested as well in other areas of career options. So we explored it. Okay. She had a friend in tech then, and then that's KNUST, spoke to the man. And then the man said, we're introducing 2 new courses that particular year. That was somewhere in 2003, 2004. So we're introducing a new course around that time. So is your son interested in any of them? I was like, what are the courses? It was petroleum at that point in time, petroleum engineering, and then aerospace engineering. And my eyes just lit up.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, my eyes just lit up. And people might find it strange, but back in the days, they used to show a lot of Nigerian movies on TV. So we all used to see oil. So my mom was like, let's look at the option of petroleum and then option of aerospace. So we chose both courses. But after careful research at that point, I kind of just found an interest in the oil and gas. I just like the whole mystery about the industry and how interesting it is to get in, how interesting the work was. And honestly, to tell you the truth, I have never regretted that decision. And I do thank my mom for that. Okay. That I will say. Yes.
Thank you, mommy. So, but where did you grow up? Are you from this wealthy home where there's so much information on exclusive stuff, or where did you actually grow up?
So we grew up in Accra, actually.
Okay.
Spent most of my life there. So most of my childhood life that I remember very well was in Accra. So my dad and then the brothers were into timber at that time. So they spent a lot of time in the timber industry. So I would say to a certain extent, they were very learned people. My mom's parents were teachers. My mom herself worked at the bank, so she had to deal with quite a lot of people. Coming in, put your money in the banks and stuff like that. So she interacted with quite a lot of them. And she kind of, I would say she was very instrumental in that part. So she was more of a parent who was more involved, who wants to get to understand what is happening around us, what could help, things like that. So I would say I came from a family where education was very important. Knowing what was happening around you was very important. So that woman reads. Now mom reads. She just reads. So that's where I got that interest from as well. So
and what was your dad?
So my dad, unfortunately, at a very early age, when I finished JSS, maybe let's say 11 days after finishing BAC, I lost my dad. He was just 46. God rest his soul. Yeah, brilliant man. Very young but brilliant man, and it was a massive transformation in my life, I must say. And I will say I am where I am today because of that experience. It changed me massively. Because a young 15-year-old boy, 3 sisters, second amongst them, and then having to be in a situation where you literally, in Africa, as we say, you are the man, you literally tend to be like the head of the family, kind of. So I kind of, at that early age, 15 years, just figured out that, listen, this is your family now. So I just had to grow up. So I grew up at a very early age, and I will say it did, yes, sense of responsibility. And I used to spend a lot of time. I picked up that habit from my mom where she reads. So I used to read a lot, understand life a lot. And one of the books that transformed me massively, I must say, if you go to my house now in Accra, my mom never painted it. There's a door I have, and at the back of the door, there's a list of things that I learned from that book. It was by Diet 2. So what I wish I knew before the age of 20.
Okay.
That book was massive. It did a massive transformation.
To the Ghanaian writer.
Ghanaian writer, yes. What I wish I knew before the age of 20. That transformed me. So I just grew up very early. Very, very early.
I didn't say anything from him there for my viewers.
Yeah. So one of the statements in the book that we always used to catch my attention was that the way to the top is not easy. If you have to get there, you need to go by the ladder. It's not word for word, but something like you need to go up through the ladder. And there are certain things in there also that talked about the fact that life might not be the way you want it, but you need to own your life. You need to own it. It's as simple as that. You need to own it. Nobody is going to leave it for you. So most of the young people I mentor at the early stages, I tell them the first most important thing to taking ownership of your life is your mindset. So I found myself in a situation without a dad, with 3 sisters, and a young man who had his whole life ahead of him. But I understood the fact that irrespective of where I was going to make it. My mind was set on that. I did believe that I was going to get to that point where I wanted to in my life. So I had a vision of where I wanted to be at a very early age. And most of my friends would tell you about it, the ones who know me personally from growing up, that I'd always been very serious about my life. Very, very early. So I grew up, yes, very, very serious. But it took a while for me to grow out of that, to also understand that you need to have fun along the line.
You have to ease up.
You need to ease up, yeah. Irrespective. So I eased off very late in life.
Okay.
But for the early stages. And it paid off. Actually did pay off. So
because you worked hard. You were just about just working hard and getting a result.
Yes.
I'm sure your mom is very proud of you.
I think she is. I don't know. I guess she is. Yes, she is. She is.
Yeah. I'm very interested in the educational journey into becoming a well delivery engineer.
Yeah, that's an interesting part as well. So 4 years in school, we were actually the first batch of petroleum engineers to be trained in Ghana. So we spent a lot of time with the GMPC engineers coming in to train us along the line during the 4 years. Honestly, we had no idea what we were doing. Even though we enjoy what we're doing, it was when we got clarity in 2007. That was in our final year, getting to our final year, when Ghana discovered oil. Yeah. And that was, you should have seen that jubilation in class. It was amazing. So we all knew that, okay, wow, it was a risk we took with the cause, obviously. Yeah. So the cause was new, we were like the guinea pigs. So there was a lot of development over the years. And currently, as we sit now, a couple of my mates are actually lecturers now in KNUST, actually helping build the cause. And a couple of the students were after us are also lecturers as well. So it's helping to develop.
Right into the oil.
I fell right into it. Yes, it was amazing. So 4 years, when I finished, I was a bit confused about what I wanted to do at that point, because I did not know whether I wanted to go straight into the industry or stay in academia, because I actually liked to lecture, which was something I enjoyed doing here, which it was weird for a lot of people.
You're quite book long, so
small. So I actually like the whole idea of sharing that knowledge and then interacting with a lot of people and that. So I stayed a year for my national service as a teaching assistant. Yes, it was the best year of my life. Reason being that having to have all this knowledge, and for the first time in your life, having to stand in front of a group of students and share was massive, because you need to know to teach. And these kids will ask you all sort of questions. And in some year, you have to be really vested in what you're doing. So it was fun, really fun. Finished, was thinking of doing my master's, was not sure whether I really wanted to work at that point. And how I got to find my first job is so interesting.
Okay, tell me about it.
So I have a mate, I grew up with him. We went to JSS together, primary JSS, SS, and then tech as well. His name is Roxon. Okay. So I was, after national service, maybe a month or two, obviously you need to start working and all that. So there's a lot of pressure from home because obviously you need to come and look after your sisters, which is an African thing. Even though my mom was doing it, I just felt she was a woman and she needed help, which was, so at a very young age, I knew that she needed that. So I moved to Accra a bit, maybe like a month or two, just to come and figure out what I wanted to do. Because most of the companies were in Accra then. They are not moved to Takari, so most of their offices were in Accra. So I was in Accra when I got a call from Roxon. And Roxon said, "Hey, Derrick, do you know of a company called Expro?" I was like, no. But then we all knew about the bakers and the slumberjays and stuff like that. So I didn't know Expro. And so I was like, okay, I'll research it. In our time, we didn't have all the fancy things that the kids have now with their phones, and they can easily check stuff.
Yeah,
for us,
tablet.
easy. Yeah. So for us, you needed to go to a cafe.
Yeah.
So that day, as soon as he called, I acted on it, went to a cafe, did a bit of research, and then I found the company Expo. I thought they were interesting. So they were into the oil and gas service inside. I was like, okay, cool, interesting. Let me try and see what I can do. So I put together my CV, took my transcript, and I was very confident in my transcript. The transcript was good, so I was very confident that I could be here. So I did something very unusual. My mom had this little car that I stole from her. She owned the car, but I literally started using it, so it became mine. So I left Accra one dawn, drove all the way down to Takoradi, looked for because the company, we said the company was just in the next building to him. So I walked up to the company. They were in a small building, nice office, very tiny place. They had like 3 or 4 people in the office then. So I met the manager that day. So when I got in, the guys, I was like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" So I heard the company is oil and gas. I'm a petroleum engineer, and I want to meet the manager and stuff like that. And the guys were like, "You're very confident." I was like, "That's all I've got." Yeah. So luckily for me, the manager had just walked in. So I was like, "Who are you?" White guy, James Lockery. "Who are you?" It's like, "I'm Derrick." "Where you from?" "Oh, so I'm a petroleum engineer from Tech, and then I heard that you guys are new in the country, you're recruiting." And I was like, "You're very articulate, you speak very well, you're very confident, come to my office."
Oh.
So we went to his office, spent almost like an hour and 2 just in. So I talked about my time in school, I talked about my plans for the future and how I wanted to enter the oil and gas industry. And he just said, "Oh, this is a good place, we are recruiting now.
Okay.
So I'll take your CV and all that, and I'll give you a call so that we discuss." He did not give me a call. He just said, "I have the job."
He will say so. You know, confidence does a lot.
It does a lot, massively.
It does more than the CVs and
Yes, it does. It does.
Yeah.
It does. And it's one of the things that our culture needs to train us on, that they need to let people be comfortable in their skins. They need to let people be more free to express what they have inside of them rather than trying to form people.
I think other African cultures do better than Ghanaian.
Yes, it does. It
Because
does.
they don't reward confidence.
No.
It's always described rather in a negative manner.
Yes, it is.
Then makes people coil. But
Yes,
I think
yes.
it's getting better.
It is.
The kids are more outspoken.
Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's very, very, it is. So I got the job, and
It's like
just like that. So a few days later, I got the contract. And strangely enough for me, I did not care about how much I was getting paid. I just wanted to work. And I was excited about it. So I got the job. 2-3 days later, I was in Ivory Coast.
already.
Because the time they are about to start the project for Ghana, most of the items were being run from Ivory Coast because Ivory Coast was more established than Ghana was in the industry then. A few companies were in Ghana, but most of them ran their operations from Ivory Coast at the early stages. That was in the 2008, 2009, 2010, those areas. So I went on Ivory Coast. And it will be shocking that my first job for the first month was just cleaning pipe, greasing pipe, testing pipe. And I was sitting there, I was like, straight from school, all this crazy things in my head. And then I come out after learning all these things.
You come back and only grease pipe.
But at that very young age, I understood the importance of work. And there's one thing my old lady used to tell me when I was growing up. She used to always say, God has given you a head. You're very smart. And sometimes you can be lazy using your hands. So use what God has given you, and that is your head. So for a very long time, I always use my head. I always engage my head. My head is always in the game. I was thinking about stuff. So I was like, listen, where you are, it's an opportunity. It might not be what exactly you want, but there's progression. So I sat down, looked at the company structure, and saw that where I was at the bottom, but there's a way to get to where you have to get to.
Good.
Then I started giving it my all. I was so excited about it. And the guys in there were shocked. I mean, honestly.
Work.
Yeah. We would stay in the sun. You would hammer stuff. You would clean stuff. You were literally like a laborer, fresh graduates from school. You were feeling like you need to wear a tie. Drop the fine shirts and get your hands dirty. But I enjoyed it. It was weird.
It's always the mindset.
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the fact that I used to come back from work and I'm all dirty and my hands are all oily and stuff. And I used to wash.
You feel like, I'm working.
Yeah, you feel accomplished. And the day went by pretty quickly because it's like when you get in, it's busy. You get in and you get all these stuff done and all that. So it was during that period when one of the guys, he was actually in the workshop, old man, Uncle Foster. Uncle Foster looked at me and he said, Derrick, honestly, I've seen a lot of young guys pass through this place and I'm impressed.
Okay.
I like the way you work. I like your attitude towards work. And in the next 2-3 years, I see you being a coordinator and leading the job. And I just laughed because I've seen guys who had worked 10, 15 years and they are not even close to it. Yeah. But when he said that, I laughed because I did not believe it. Honestly, I didn't. Because I looked at the structure of the company, I did not believe it. And then Uncle Foster literally taught me the job. Honestly, he taught me the job.
You know, he identifies that it'll be of value if I spend my time on this boy because you're ready to learn.
Yes.
Yes, and that's how you're always.
That's the whole thing. And people look at, you might have all the things you want, like you be smart and all that is on your paper, your CV, stuff like that. But your attitude, your posture, how people view you,
attitude.
It's very important. It's very important.
Because at the beginning, truthfully, is not about money. It's not about degree. It's not about a first class, and that attitude. That's it. As an attitude pays 1,000-fold.
Yes, it does.
Later.
It does. It does. So Uncle Foster took his time and taught me the job. Honestly, he taught me everything I knew. He showed me how the company worked and how I could get the training I needed, and then everything that I actually required in my career at that early stage. So then I got a chance to go for a few trainings, and I made it a purpose that every training I went to, if I don't top the class, I will be part of it too.
Okay.
So I did that. The reason why I did that was we were a law, and I wanted to be an outlier. And it was weird how I functioned that way. I sometimes I sit back at this age and I wonder, how did I have that much confidence, that much knowledge about certain things in life and how to go about it? How did that happen? But I guess maybe it was losing a father was key. So it helped as much as possible. So we learned the job, went through the ranks, and honestly, to tell you the truth, went through the ranks in my previous company, stage by stage. So by the time I got to the point where I was in charge of a job and running the job.
Okay.
The respect was there because the guy knew that this engineer has been there and he's done that. And that was brilliant. I had the chance to travel the world, see the world. And it was a shocker when I found out that the culture in so many places are so different from home. And when you get back home and you see certain people do certain things, like, oh, why is this person doing this?
Because we've seen otherwise.
I've seen otherwise. A lot of things that look normal somewhere look like,
say travel and see.
Yeah, travel and see. Got the chance, traveled the world, did a lot. It was massive. It was impressive. And my trajectory in the company was very good. They saw the talent they had. They invested a lot of money in me to train over the years. So in my 5th year, then I reassessed my career. So I looked at my career and I was like, listen, I get bored easily with work. So I always need something that is exciting, something that triggers me all the time. So, yeah. And back in school with the petroleum, there were different divisions. And I actually thought I wanted to be a reservoir engineer. But I noticed that, that is not for me. I actually fancied, because being on the job, you used to go offshore, you used to be on land, you used to work in the desert, stuff like that. I figured out that no, the whole drilling thing was more exciting than the rest. People might beg to differ, but the action on the drilling front is amazing. So I was like, no, listen, this is what I want to do. So I took, at that time I was living in Aberdeen, working for my company. And I actually went there for like a month or 2 for a project. And after that, the guys were like, listen, you're staying with, I was stuck there. Yeah.
I think all in all, it's the whole message is hard work pays.
It really does.
That's it.
It really does.
Because you really paid your dues and it paid off.
It paid off, yeah. I started with Tello in January 2018.
Okay.
Yes. So that's almost 5.5 years now of being with them. Yeah. So when I joined them, very nice. Went through the ranks again because as an operator, the operators are different from the service companies. So the operators are like the brains. They're the ones who make all the decisions, the main guys there. So it was a massive transition. So I had to relearn a lot of things about how they work and all that. And then when I came in, I had to do a program for a year again. Even after a master's, it's like a whole development program for all the engineers.